What I'm about to share with you today has the power to either make you incredibly wealthy or keep you broke for the rest of your life. And it has nothing to do with your sales skills. It has nothing to do with how you pitch, how you handle objections, or even the offer that you're on. It has everything to do with something that most sales reps will never admit they have: ego. Think about this for a moment. When was the last time you looked down on a lead because you thought they weren't good enough? When was the last time you didn't prepare for a new offer because you thought, I got this? When was the last time you completely dismissed someone's concerns because you thought you knew better than they do? If you're being honest with yourself, it was probably more recent than you'd like to admit. Here's what most people don't understand about ego. Ego does not look like arrogance all the time. Sometimes it looks like complaining about your leads. Sometimes it looks like thinking you're too good to role play. Sometimes it even looks like pushing your agenda instead of actually solving the person's problem. And every single one of these versions of ego is costing you money. I've seen talented sales reps with incredible potential destroy their income because they couldn't get out of their own way. I watch people who should be making six figures stay at $50,000, $60,000 a year because ego won't let them do the work that actually produces results. If you're new here, my name is Princess Bonhomme, and I help people break through their income ceilings in high-ticket sales by becoming the person who gets a yes before you even pitch. I've seen students go from 2K months to 20K months using what I'm about to share with you. Today, I'm going to show you the 4 most common ways that ego shows up, and more importantly, I'm going to show you how to destroy your ego before it destroys your income. So this is not going to be comfortable. You're probably going to see yourself in some of these examples, and that's good because that means you are paying attention. Because here's the truth. Your income is a direct reflection of your humility. The more coachable you are, the more money you can make. The more you think you know everything, the more broke you stay. So if you're ready to get real with yourself about where ego is showing up in your career, then let's dive in. One of the most common ways that I see ego show up in sales reps is when they believe that they are way too good for their offer, or they're too good for certain kinds of leads, or they're too good for this company. And it's so odd because it's often the newest sales reps who think that they're too good for this or that. I recently made a post about this, how your first offer, even your second offer, shouldn't be your dream offer because that's where you're going to make all of your mistakes. So at this point, you should just be grateful that someone's giving you an opportunity with their leads that they paid money for. They're giving you an opportunity to learn how to sell with those people. It doesn't matter if you've done coaching programs before. If you've never actually sold to real human beings with a pulse, then this is not the time to be too picky. Even if the leads, a lot of them don't have a ton of money, you are not too good to speak to anyone. When you're newer at sales, this is the time to really maximize any opportunity that you get to be in. This is where you grind it out, hustle. If you get leads who don't have a ton of money, but you have a CRM full of leads, you hustle through that CRM, figure out a way to qualify these leads so that way you're not wasting too much time. But this is the muscle. This is the skill set. So that way you get yourself in a position where when you start getting quality inbound leads, you're able to spot really quickly where they're at, qualify them without dragging the call, and just get results a lot quicker. You really want to build your skill set on some of these opportunities that are not the shiniest. So that way, by the time you're able to land a quality offer, when your skill sets are there, you have a track record, you have numbers to back what you say, now you can actually perform and you won't get fired off of your dream offer. The second most common way that I see ego show up in sales reps is when they think they don't have to prepare as much as they really need to. So this is often when they jump on a new offer, whether it's their first one or their third or fourth or fifth, and they go, I've got this, easy peasy. I'm not going to take time watching the sales calls. I'm not going to really go over the pitch. I got this. And they end up getting fired from the offer within 30 days because they can't hit KPIs, even if they were performing on their previous offer. Regardless of how many millions you've closed in sales, you are not above researching your avatar before you start selling to them. One thing that I always talk about with my students is you've got to understand your avatar. So there's the different income brackets, but then there's also More specifically, the things that make real estate agents different from doctors. So if you're on an offer that sells lead gen to healthcare professionals, there are certain things about them that make them different from real estate agents and that would make them different from stay-at-home moms. For example, real estate agents, they're almost always in a rush because they work from their car going from listing to listing. And so they want you to just, let's go, let's get it moving. I want to get to the point. Whereas if you're selling to stay-at-home moms, they might have a lot more time because they are taking the sales call while their kids are at school. On the other hand, if you're selling to doctors, let's say you're helping them scale their practice, these are people who are seen as an authority figure every single day. So the way you show up with them, you need to position yourself as an authority figure on that call. Otherwise, the frame is completely off. I see so many closers who maybe just sold biz up to stay-at-home moms don't actually fully prepare now that they're on an offer selling to doctors, and they wonder why they bomb their first 10 calls and get put on a performance improvement plan. It's because no matter how many millions you sold to stay-at-home moms, you need to understand how to speak to doctors. So that means doing the prep work so you can actually perform. The third most common way that I see ego show up is whether you're a sales rep or a business owner, people thinking that they're so much better than their peers. For example, I spoke with a sales rep who was 2 months into sales, and she said to me, I want to charge people to role play with me. And I thought that was so insane because can you imagine if a basketball player, let's say his name is LeBron James, if while he was coming up and just starting off shooting hoops and, training in his backyard and stuff like that, can you imagine if he said, yeah, I want to charge the kids in my neighborhood to play basketball with me when he's only 2 months into training? How insane is that? And I hear this all the time where sales reps say that they don't want to role play with people who are newer to sales because they're not good prospects. You can role play with anybody because at the end of the day, prospects don't show up to your calls having had sales training, okay? Another one I hear all the time is sales reps saying, I could run this business better than the business owner. And I'm not gonna lie, at one point, 3 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago, when I was all up in my ego, I thought the same thing as well. I would be on offers thinking, oh my gosh, why can't they just get this lead flow right? Like I could do this better. And the reality is now, and I understand this very much now that I'm a business owner, no, I couldn't have done it better. Absolutely freaking not. I truly believe that for the most part, business owners are doing their best, and lead flow, marketing, running ads, that stuff changes all the time. And so I understand now, especially now that I'm in their shoes, that it's really not that easy. And there's no way in heck a random sales rep whose only experience is taking calls could do marketing better. So if you feel like you could do the marketing better on your offer, stop it, because that is not true. The fourth most common way that I see ego show up in sales reps is the most detrimental, and it's this: believing that you know better than your prospect. So the way this shows up on sales calls is when you're pushing your agenda instead of actually solving their problem. I see this happen all the time where sales reps will dismiss the prospect's concern as like, oh, that's just a stupid objection, or that's just a smokescreen, or they'll try to convince them that they need what they sell. This is another big one where the prospect will come on and you realize, oh, they're not really qualified. So you try to convince them to buy. No, absolutely not. You do not understand what they need better than they do. For example, if they come onto your call and you are selling a mentorship that teaches people how to run ads, and this is someone who's doing 6 figures a month and they're like, I don't have time to do it myself. I don't want to do it myself. I just want someone who's going to run the ads for me. It is not your job to convince them that no, you need to learn how to run your own ads. If they don't have time for it, they don't want to, that's that on that. They're not a good fit. I see this happen time and time again where closers are like, oh my gosh, the prospect had so much money. I'm so mad I didn't close them. But what they don't realize is that when you start to push your own agenda and that's more important to you than helping the person, you've already lost. People buy solutions to their problems, not the problems that you think they should have. Another recent example is I saw a sales rep assume that the prospect's pain was about money when it was actually about time. And the reason why he made that assumption is because most of the leads on his offer, their main issue is money. So while the prospect was talking, the closer, he didn't even catch her when she said that her biggest issue is actually balancing running the business with spending time with her new baby. So throughout discovery, he ended up future pacing her on having more money, and he asked her consequence questions around running out of money in her savings. And because he wasn't listening, she actually accused him of using sales tactics on her because he was taking the conversation in a direction that was not in alignment with what she actually said. So he ended up getting caught, if you will, being salesy, which always happens when you're pushing your own agenda. Look back at your sales calls, and if you're brave enough, put it in the comments how many times you've done this in the last week. As you're hearing me speak, you're probably thinking, okay, but how do I make this shift? So let me share with you a story about what shifted in terms of how I understand transformation. Growing up and in my early 20s, I was assaulted multiple times before I actually learned how to fight and defend myself. And if you fast forward to 3 years ago, when I started sales, I got walked all over by aggressive prospects who would steamroll right through me. So it was the same pattern, but in different areas of my life. And I didn't know how to hold my ground. I used to constantly feel unsafe physically, emotionally, spiritually, everything. So when those instances happened, when I was physically assaulted, I would freeze and my body would tense up and I didn't know what to do. I just kept taking punches and getting the wind knocked out of me. And I was a target because I carried myself out in the world like I was a victim. And on sales calls, it was the exact same thing. People with type A personalities would interrupt me, they would not answer my questions, and take control of the conversation. And I just let them. I would leave those calls feeling so defeated, feeling like I just got demolished and I didn't know how to change it. And the thing that changed everything for me in both of those areas was mentorship. I got a boxing coach who taught me how to move, how to breathe, how to ground myself, how to actually take a punch without getting the wind knocked out of me. It wasn't about becoming aggressive. It was about becoming more grounded, how to become more centered, and building more confidence. I learned that confidence isn't something that you can fake. It's something that is earned through practice. So after I learned how to defend myself, I was never assaulted ever again. And here's what's interesting. I didn't get bigger. I didn't become scary looking. What really shifted was my energy. The way I carried myself completely changed. And people on the street can sense who's an easy target, and I stopped being one. The same exact transformation happened in my sales career when I got a good mentor. He taught me how to stay centered when someone was trying to intimidate me, and he taught me how to lead without being aggressive. It was the same principle, learning how to be graceful and grounded instead of reactive. So now, if a type A personality gets onto my call and they even think about bossing me around, they don't. Not because I'm aggressive, it's because I'm not available to be walked all over anymore. So here's what I learned from both experiences. You have the power to transform who you are, and it's exponentially faster with the right mentorship. I could have tried to defend myself on my own. I could have watched YouTube videos. I could have shadowboxed in my bedroom, but I would have been a walking target for years until I slowly pieced it all together. Same thing with sales. I could have tried to figure it out on my own and read books and listened to podcasts for years and years until I eventually got confident. But I would have spent years getting demolished by prospects in the meantime. So mentorship doesn't make it easy. I still had to show up to the gym every single day and prep for fights. I still had to run 10 miles every single week. I still had to spar 5 days a week. And with my mentor, I still had to implement what he taught me. I still had to do all of the uncomfortable work of changing how I showed up. But mentorship made it possible and it made it faster. The thing that's knocking the wind out of you right now in your sales career, whether it's ego, whether it's fear, whether it's a lack of skill, whatever it is, you You have the power to transform it, and you don't have to do it alone. So if you are looking for a mentor and you resonate with me and my message, the link to book a call with me is below. Everything I've just shared with you about ego, every example, every behavior, every way that it's destroying your income, none of it matters if you don't do something about it. Most people are going to listen to this, nod their heads, recognize themselves in these examples, and then do absolutely nothing to change it. They're going to get on their next call with the same ego, the same bad habits, the same resistance to being coached. And they're going to wonder, why is nothing changing? Why am I not making more money? You don't have to be most people. You have the power to transform who you are. I showed you that in my story. I went from being someone who was physically assaulted so many times in my life to someone who moves with earned confidence. I went from being a little mouse who got walked all over on sales calls to someone who holds her ground with even the most aggressive type A prospects. Here's what made the difference. I was willing to admit that I don't know everything. I was willing to get mentorship, and I was willing to put in the work even when it was really uncomfortable. Again, mentorship does not make it easy, but it makes it possible. And it makes it exponentially faster than trying to put all the pieces together on your own. So here's my challenge to you. Pick just one ego behavior from today. Just one that you know is showing up in your sales career. Maybe it's thinking that you're better than your peers. Maybe it's skipping preparation. Maybe it's not listening to prospects because you're too busy planning what you want to say next. Just pick one and commit to addressing it in the next 30 days. Get coaching on it. Practice the opposite behavior and ask for feedback from people who will tell you the truth, not your little friends. Because the thing that's knocking the wind out of you right now in your career, whether it's ego, skill, whatever it is, you can transform it. But you cannot transform what you will not acknowledge. You have to be willing to see yourself clearly. You've got to be willing to admit where you're wrong. And you've got to be willing to get coached even if it hurts your pride. That's the price of transformation. And I promise you, it's worth paying. If you're serious about destroying your ego and breaking through your income ceiling, I have a community where we're doing this together. The link is in the description. That's where you'll find people who are committed to growth and who are committed to getting results over being right. Your ego is costing you money every single day. The question is, are you going to do something about it? If you made it to the end, congratulations, you are serious about your career. As always, I'm looking forward to hearing all of your takeaways in the comments. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one.